At that moment, the governor had us informed that the ship from India, which was to take the Grand Marshal and his family, was in the St. Helena harbor. But the Grand Marshal had decided against his departure, unwilling to leave the emperor in his current state of health. After remaining a few days in the harbor, the ship set out for Europe. We thus reached the year 1821, which the emperor would see begin, but alas, would not see end. As in the previous years, he received everyone's respects. That morning, when I entered his room, he was in bed. "Well," he said to me, when the shutters were open, "what are you giving me as a present?" "Sire," I said to him, "the hope of seeing your majesty get very well soon and leave a climate so bad for his health." "It won't be long, my son. My end is near. I cannot go on much longer." I hurried to tell him that was not the way I meant my wish. "It shall be," he replied, as he got out of bed with difficulty, "as heaven wishes." Dr. Entomarchi lacked the assiduous attention to which the emperor had always been accustomed from those who were around him. On several occasions he had brought well-deserved criticism on himself through the aggravation he caused the emperor, who did not find him at hand when he called for him. A certain awkwardness in his service led him to believe he did not have His Majesty's trust, and he asked to be sent back to Europe. The emperor answered that as he could not give him his full trust, he authorized him to ask the British officer commanding in St. Helena if it was possible for him to take the same ship as Father Bonavita, who was returning to Europe, in order to help this kind old man during the crossing. Chandelier, the cook, who was riddled with rheumatism, was waiting for another cook to come and replace him so he could also go back to Europe. These departures, which everyone talked about, brought a certain sadness to the rest of the colony. At the same time, the emperor had letters written to Europe saying that he would gladly accept the care of Misters Corvisar, Larry, Desgenet, or Percy. Once his anger had passed, the Grand Marshal and General Montholon interceded with the emperor so that he would see the doctor again, who was asking to leave the island only because he feared he did not have the emperor's trust, that he would compromise this man's health, for which he was held responsible in the eyes of the entire world. The emperor forgave him, and he resumed his duties. The emperor dressed infrequently now. He had told Count de Montholon to force him to go out, but in spite of repeated pleas, the general did not always succeed in overcoming the emperor's reluctance to expose himself to the southeasterly wind, which he said harmed him and irritated his nervous system. His walks in carriage rides became more and more rare, and he always came home and threw himself on his settee, looking exhausted. His feet were always cold, and the only way to warm them was with hot towels, which he preferred to hot water bottles or anything else. During the previous 6 months, this condition had steadily gotten worse, when on March 17th, the emperor took to his bed and almost never left it again. That same day, Father Bonavita was leaving Jamestown to return to Europe. The morning of his departure, he came to say goodbye to the emperor, whom he had not seen for several weeks. The emperor had heard mass from his bed by opening the door connecting his bedroom to the chapel. As this kind elderly man walked with difficulty when he approached the bed and knelt to kiss the emperor's hand, he was invited to get up and be seated. I assisted by approaching and offering my arm for him to lean on. The emperor talked to him about what he was to say to his mother and his family when he arrived in Rome. Father Bonavita was deeply moved by the emperor's calm and resignation. He was also astonished at the ravages of his features, to the point where he could no longer hold back his tears as he was leaving the room. "My dear friend," he said to me, "the emperor is much changed. I'm going to inform his family that if he's not removed from here as soon as possible, he's done for." After I had accompanied him a few steps outside, I turned away and I embraced and wished him a safe voyage. 2 weeks later, Gentilini, who had not wanted to take advantage of the ship leaving with Father Bonavita, had left for Europe alone. The emperor gave him a letter of recommendation addressed to his family for a pension of 1,200 francs. He had with him a draft for the sum of 16,000 francs, the product of his savings and wages. He did not want to take that money with him. He handed the sum over to me to place it in the account of the emperor, who then requested that the cardinal pay it to the man on his arrival. We were too worried about the emperor's health for these 2 departures to have the same effect as preceding ones, for the emperor's habits were not changed very much by them. Prior to all this, the emperor had learned of the death of Princess Elisa, his sister. That news saddened him, and he told Count de Montholon, who was with him, "Well, my son, it's my turn next." And as the general was trying to distract the emperor from such depressing thoughts, he added, "It is in vain that you try to give me hope. I feel it. I am no longer the proud Napoleon. Soon the sovereigns will no longer have to fear my escape from this rock." I have related that the emperor had urged Count de Montsalon to use force to get him to go out. On the morning of March 17th, the count came, as usual, to try and convince the emperor to get into his carriage. The doctor was present and also insisted. The emperor was in bed, resisting their wishes. "I feel so poorly when I come home," he said, "and I am so well in bed." "Well, Montsalon, as you insist, see if the carriage is there." The general came back immediately to say it was there, and there was almost no wind. The emperor ate a little jelly I had offered him, put on a pair of trousers, some slippers, a necktie, a green overcoat, and a round hat, and he went out leaning on Count de Montalon's arm. Once he reached the carriage, he was unable to get into it. He came back inside feeling an icy chill through his whole body and went directly to bed. I covered him with a second blanket while Sontini and Noveraz heated towels that I wrapped around his feet, changing them often. "You are bringing me back to life," he said. "I fear I'm about to have a relapse. It will save me or kill me." As he was complaining about his stomach, I applied hot towels there too. He felt better and managed to perspire a little, after which he dismissed the doctor and told Count de Montsalon, "My son, go and have lunch. I know that I'm going to sleep." When these gentlemen had departed, I was asked to read him about the campaigns of Dumouriez. During the day, Count Bertrand came at his usual time, and the emperor conversed with him about that general's operations. The sweating had been so abundant that several times the emperor felt the need to change his underclothes. Feeling better, he wanted to go out to his oak tree and sit down while they aired out his room. He could not remain outside for too long and returned to his bed, supported by Noveraz and Count de Montsalon. Just as a new attack was occurring, he sent for the doctor, who had not yet returned from town, where he had accompanied Father Bonavita. When he showed up, the crisis had already passed. The emperor, annoyed that he had not been there when he had his relapse, refused to see him. I spent the night close to the emperor, but in the adjoining room the night was quiet. The following day, the 18th, Count Bertrand, informed of the new chills that had seized the emperor, came at 9 o'clock to inquire about him. That hour was unusual for him. The emperor was astonished and had me answer he was feeling fine. He ate a biscuit and drank a little Malaga wine. And as he was getting ready to go into the garden, he called for Count de Montsalon. On reaching his bench, he vomited everything he had swallowed, but nevertheless insisted on staying there until he was forced to go back in. The emperor's features were very drawn, as on the previous day. He was forced to get into bed and was only able to warm his feet and body by using towels. The doctor was immediately called in. He talked about medication to be taken in. The emperor did not want any. Count de Montsalon kept him company until Count Bertrand arrived. After the Grand Marshal's departure, the emperor had me resume reading about the campaigns of Dumouriez. On the 19th, the emperor was again seized with a fever, which crept up on him like a snake, he said. He had me cover him with several blankets and tried unsuccessfully to sleep. He summoned Count de Montsalon, who spent part of the morning with him, and he called for the doctor, who again was not at home. When the Grand Marshal arrived, the emperor expressed his dissatisfaction with the doctor, who had not yet seen him during a crisis. He told Count de Montsalon to go get some fresh air, which he must have needed. On the 20th, the emperor's condition remained the same. The night had been calm, and that morning he wanted to take a short walk outside. He spotted a peach that appeared ripe and ate it with a great deal of sugar, but it made him ill, and he threw it up a few moments later. When he came in, he said, "Poor me!" The day was spent conversing with one or the other of these gentlemen, but that evening the fever increased. He had the covered lamp put in the adjoining room to draw away the mosquitoes that were bothering him, and had the mosquito netting lowered, but they got inside. He got up so that I could chase them away, and then went back to bed and called for Count de Montsalon. In the afternoon, Count Bertrand came to spend a few hours with him. On the 21st, an emetic was offered to the emperor, who refused any kind of medication. The doctor explained the results to be expected from it. General Bertrand and Count de Montsalon joined him, and the following day he decided to take it. Count Bertrand came to inquire about the emperor's health. He said to me to express his gratitude as well as his regret that he could not receive her. She told me how worried she was, for the doctor had told her the emperor's situation was most serious and that symptoms of gastritis were evident. On the 22nd, the emperor yielded to the wishes of these gentlemen and took the emetic that was administered to him in 2 doses taken some time apart. The result was drastic. Count de Montsalon and the doctor were present. Some phlegm came up after repeated efforts, and sleep overcame him in the afternoon. I lowered the mosquito netting, and the stuffiness got him out of bed. He settled into his armchair, where he spent part of the evening in the dark, with a covered lamp placed in the adjoining room. On the 23rd, after having his cautery bandaged, the emperor felt the need to shave and brush his teeth. Once these cleansings were completed, he felt refreshed. In the morning, he agreed again to take the emetic, but his stomach convulsions were so severe he would have no more of it. Once Count Bertrand and Montholon had departed, I remained alone with him. He fell asleep while I was reading to him. When he woke, he ate a little soup and jelly, his only food since he took to his bed. During the night, he had perspired and changed his flannel undershirt several times. He asked me for a small bottle and some licorice, poured a small quantity, and told me to fill it with water, adding that in the future he wished to have no other beverage but that. He then forbade me to offer him any liquid he had not authorized. On the 24th, he showed Count de Montholon the beverage that he proposed to take. If it doesn't do me any good, he said to him, it will do me no harm. The doctor who was present smiled at the emperor's words, but declared that his stomach needed an emetic, which he must suggest to his majesty. Why don't you go jump in the lake, said the emperor, and take the emetic yourself. That same day, the doctor told the emperor that Novaraz had gone to bed with a very severe liver attack, and that he had just attended to him. The emperor feared that his illness might be quite long, and as I had not fully recovered from my own, that I would have relapsed because of fatigue. I had indeed spent the nights from the 18th to the 24th attending him, assisted by Sontini or Novaraz, who slept in the adjoining room. Count de Montholon, to whose care the emperor was accustomed during the day, offered his services for the night. The emperor decided he would remain with him from 9 p.m. to 2 a.m., and at that time I would come and resume my service with him. So in addition to the hours he spent with the emperor during the day, Count de Montholon took on this night duty. The Grand Marshal came regularly at 3 p.m. and left at 6 p.m. I took advantage of his presence in the emperor's bedroom to have dinner. The emperor told him of the new arrangement he had just made. Count Bertrand immediately offers his services, and the emperor replied, Montholon's services are sufficient. I am used to his taking care of me. If that were not sufficient, I would accept yours. Countess Bertrand came to inquire about the emperor, who asked me to thank her. On the 25th and 26th, wet towels were applied several times to the emperor's stomach. The doctor told me he was concerned and said that the illness was progressing rapidly from day to day because he refused the help that could be offered him. I see only one way, he said to me, and that is to put an emetic in his adopted beverage and in those that may be offered to him without letting him know about it. He whispered his proposal to me in the bedroom of the emperor, who was sleeping at the time. I answered that I would absolutely not give the emperor beverages with emetics in them, because I had not received orders regarding this very matter, and the emperor would not at all appreciate being treated this way. Consult General Montholon and the Grand Marshal, I added, but for myself, I refused to have any part in it. The conversation came to an end, and he never mentioned it to me again. The following day, the 27th, the doctor came, as he usually did, at 8 a.m., and entered after having been announced. The emperor told him his night had not been bad, and that General Montholon had helped him change his flannel shirt several times. The doctor took advantage of his good mood to tell him that he should put more trust in medicine. That is all very well, said the emperor. You work like blind men, and medicine kills more men than it saves. The day went by. He alternated between his bed and his armchair in the adjoining room, conversing with Count de Montholon and then Count Bertrand, who replaced him. A table holding several decanters filled with cool drinks stood in front of him, but he had not drunk anything all day long. When he saw Count Bertrand, the emperor asked him, Well, Sir Grand Marshal, how do you feel? Perfectly well, sire. I wish the same could be said for your majesty. How do you find these drinks with emetics in them? Are they doing you good? The emperor knew nothing about the proposal that had been made to me, and as he felt sick to his stomach, he immediately called me. I was in the adjoining room. A sudden anger shone in his face in contrast with my calmness. Since when, sir, do you allow yourself to poison me by putting beverages with emetics in them on my table? Didn't I tell you not to offer me anything without my authorization? Did I not forbid you? Is this the way you justify my trust in you? You knew it! Get out! I was speechless. Never had the emperor spoken to me in that way, but his anger was misplaced. Sire, I said to him, I can assure your majesty that as far as I know, there is no emetic in these drinks. It is true that yesterday, in your majesty's bedroom, the doctor talked to me about the need to put an emetic in the drinks that would be served to you, without telling you about it, but I thought I had dissuaded him. by telling him he could not allow an act of this nature toward your majesty. As for myself, I refuse to allow any to come into this room. If the doctor has followed through on this idea, I was not informed of it, and it must have taken place in the pantry. Have Entomarshi called in. Fortunately, he was not at home. I had received the brunt of his outburst, and that evening he came in for his share. He tried to excuse himself by telling the emperor that continued to refuse the help offered him was endangering his life. Well, sir, do I owe you an account? Do you not believe that for me, death would be a blessing from heaven? I do not fear it. I will do nothing to hasten it, but I will not grasp at straws to survive. He dismissed him curtly and went 2 days without seeing him. The incident had put the emperor in a bad mood the rest of the day. He had me throw all the drinks that were on his table out the window and said with some irritation, I certainly hope no one has taken the liberty of adding anything to my licorice. During the day, I had bandaged his arm. The flesh was pale and the patch not very wet. As I have mentioned, soups and jellies were almost the only food the emperor had taken since keeping to his room. The governor worried that the duty officer no longer saw the emperor and insisted that he see a British doctor. The days of the 28th and the 29th were much like the preceding ones. The shutters were drawn. The emperor went often at night, and during the day from his bed to his settee or armchair, he had the door to his garden open and told Count Bertrand to find him a flower. He brought back a pansy that the emperor placed on his table. The Grand Marshal and Count de Montsalon pleaded the doctor's case, describing how worried he was. A great responsibility lay on his shoulders. He had but one thought, to bring some relief to the emperor's suffering, and he would be content if the emperor were to allow him to bring in a doctor likely to inspire a trust that he could not. That's fine. Tell him I shall see him tomorrow. The emperor did see him the following day and uttered, Doctor, I am a dead man. If your majesty refuses all help. The doctor came up to the bed, felt his pulse, placed his hands in his stomach, found it bloated, and told him he would advise the use of pills that would cause this condition to disappear. Doctor, the emperor said to him, laughing, you are a great ignorant man, my friend. You know that Hippocrates said yes, and Galen said no. In this situation, this is the best medicine. And he showed him a small bottle filled with licorice water, which he preferred to all the various drinks placed on his table. The Grand Marshal and General Montsalon, as I have said, had already talked to the emperor about the doctor's wish to bring in another physician. During the night, Count de Montsalon discussed it with him, but the emperor had been opposed to this action and told me, after these gentlemen had left, what use is there in bringing in another doctor? Will he know my illness any better? If Corvisart or Larrey were here, I would trust them and have some hope. But these ignorant people know nothing about my ailment. A good ride on horseback, that is what I need. Find a book and read me something.